DJ Giddens, 6 foot, 212 pounds, out of Kansas State. I'm here with @MattFF Dynasty on Twitter to break down this very intriguing prospect ahead of your rookie drafts. Matt, DJ Giddens, obviously elite movement skills, some really impressive vision, sneaky 3-down workload as well. Is this a guy that could be the kind of diamond in the rough in your rookie drafts as we get towards May?
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, he's quite a unique player, as you mentioned. He's got the frame, 6 foot, 212 pounds, but he's actually not really someone you class as a bruising back. He's best when used in using his agility and his ability to make people miss, which is kind of unique for a player of his size. But as you mentioned, he's been a lead back. He's shown that he can be used in both phases of the game, both as a runner and a receiver. He's been the focal point of that Kansas State offense for the past 2 seasons now, over 12,000 rushing yards and then 13,000 rushing yards this past season. A really interesting play as well in terms of the athleticism that he poses as well. You just got to look at the recent NFL Combine, a 4.4340, which ranks 7th amongst running backs, 39.5 vert, 2nd amongst running backs, 10-10 broad jump, 2nd again amongst running backs, and an impressive shuttle as well. So really impressed me with that combine performance, because he's somebody that I kind of have my doubts about the elite speed that he had, the top end speed, and how explosive he actually was. So to come out with that combine was really impressive. So yeah, as you mentioned, somebody that can be used in all 3 phases of the game. If we can just get him in the right situation, I think he can definitely be a diamond in the rough later on in your rookie drafts.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we dive into my thoughts, though, if you want to get more of my thoughts on every single fantasy relevant prospect in this rookie class, hit the join button down below. Silver and members and above get a free rookie guide that first week in May after the NFL draft, ready for your rookie drafts. Yeah, I really like DJ Giddens. I think he's an exciting player. I think he's got some of the best highlights in this entire class, which, you know, it's always fun when you got a guy that can score from anywhere on the field. It's as you said, really interesting that he's not a massive back, but he's a bigger back. But I think he runs with quite poor power at times. I think he doesn't have that excellent contact balance. He doesn't have that ability to kind of blow through arm tackles. He does come down on first contact too often. But you know, if we're looking outside probably those first 2-3 tiers of backs, he's probably the player I'm most intrigued by, because he does have that 3-down potential. I think he's got the bulk, he's got the size, he's got the vision to play in short yardage situations. I think he's competent as receiver. I do have questions of his hands. I think he's fine catching those what I'd class as like simple passes, so like check downs and screens and things like that, the uncomplicated stuff. But I think anytime he has to go outside of his frame and make a more challenging catch, or a catch away from his body, or a contested catch situation, he's not the most natural at doing that. So I do worry that could cap the potential ceiling. But if we're talking kind of 3rd round rookie draft, I think there's few players that have got the potential to be a real reliable fantasy option like DJ Giddens.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. A common comp that I've seen is someone like a Rachaad White. As you mentioned, I don't think he's quite got the receiving upside of someone like a Rachaad White. I think he was a lot more prolific in the receiving game in college. But to me, I see him more as like a Chuba Hubbard kind of running back. So a guy who's got a very similar frame to Giddens, but he's not really a power back. He's a lot better in terms of making people miss, very similar to DJ Giddens, and using that athleticism to as I say, make people miss. So I think that's more of the comp I go with, and you see what he's done this past season with the Panthers. So if he can find himself in a situation where he can eventually become the lead back, I think he can carry that 3-down workload. Again, Hubbard, not the most prolific receiving back, but he's capable of taking some checkdowns and short passes. So I kind of see more of a Chuba Hubbard kind of comp if I was doing a comp for him. So really exciting, as you say, later on in your rookie drafts to get somebody like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think also scheme versatile. This is a guy that can run those outside zone schemes, can run duo, can run power gap. Like there's a lot of different types of run on his college tape, which is the way the NFL's moving. So I think that's always a bonus when you've got a guy that can potentially fit into most schemes within the NFL. Right, if you're looking for a fun rookie to pick in your rookie drafts, look no farther than RJ Harvey. Yes, he's small and undersized at 5'8", but decent bulk at 205 pounds. We'll ignore the fact he's 24 years old, though. Matt, please, are you as excited about the potential of RJ Harvey as I am?
I 100% am. I'm so glad when you suggested RJ Harvey to be on this list, because if you didn't, I was going to pick him because, I really like him, as you mentioned. Maybe slightly undersized, you could say, but he's been uber productive in the opportunities he's had while at UCF. Just under 3,000 rushing yards and 38 touchdowns in the last 2 seasons just shows how productive he has been on what, to be honest, was a really poor UFC offense. So the fact that he's been able to be that productive, really impressive. As you mentioned, absolute home run hitter. He can make the smallest plays into big plays. You just got to look at the stats as well. Ranked second in the NCAA amongst breakaway runs, so runs over 15 yards last year, behind the one and only Ashton Genty, who's getting the generational tag. So if you're not too far behind him, you're doing pretty well. Also ranked 8th in mixed tackles as well. So again, just showing how elusive he can be, that excellent footwork as you highlighted. And you touched on the age. I think we can give him a pass because he did have that ACL tear in 2021. That's kind of a lost season for him. But in the 3 seasons that he did play, as I said, uber productive. I just can't shake this feeling, which I don't know if you agree with me, but Bucky Irving, I'm getting that Bucky Irving vibe from somebody like RJ Harvey. Very similar in the fact that, as I say, really shifted back, slightly undersized, and we've seen what he's been able to do with the Buccaneers. I think this one does depend a lot on scheme. Bucky Irving fell into a great scheme with the Buccaneers. So I feel like RJRV has got a little bit more of dependence on landing the correct scheme. You want that kind of outside zone where you can get him into space and he can use that speed and that breakaway ability that he's got. So a really interesting running back in this upcoming class. And again, somebody I'll definitely be targeting in the mid-second round in rookie drafts.
Yeah, if you are finding this for the first time and you want more rookie profiles, hit that subscribe button. We are profiling every single fantasy relevant player you need to know for your rookie drafts. It's interesting you say the Bucky Irving. I've tried to avoid copying anyone to Bucky Irving this year because I just think that's, it's like looking for the next Puka Nacua and things like that.
Yeah.
I think RJ Harvey is a far better athlete than Bucky Irving, which with how Bucky Irving tested the combine isn't particularly hard. I don't think he's got anywhere near the vision. And I think that's, for me, the thing that we kind of hold out. The reason why Bucky Irving was able to transition so smoothly into the NFL was that incredible vision. And I don't think RJ Harvey's that. I think he's a natural runner. I think he's got a great feel for space. I think at times he does go looking for the home run. I think, sometimes you've just got to accept, right, this is a 5-yard run. That's all I can get. Just take it. He's the kind of guy that, a little bit like Kenneth Walker does sometimes, that infuriates people, is that, right, rather than just taking 5 yards, I'm going to try and look for 60 and it might end up costing me 3 or something like that. Like it is boom or bust. That's great and exciting when it works, but I think that's going to infuriate some coaches. Do you think that he could have kind of 3 down potential? Do you think he could be a workhorse, or do you think he needs to be in a kind of a split timeshare type role at the next level?
I wouldn't say necessarily needs to be, but I do think that's probably the direction we're going to head in with someone like RJ Harvey. If you can pair him up with that more bruising back, someone that's willing to do the dirty work, and then you can bring RJ Harvey on and he can be that. I suppose we do the kind of thunder and lightning, the comparison that we say with these backfields. He is kind of that lightning and somebody you would like to pair with more of a bruising back. Keeping him fresh. I think that's the key thing with some of these backs that excel with the speed and the explosiveness. You kind of got to keep them fresh. You don't want to be wearing them out, doing all the dirty work, because they're going to lose that pop on terms of breaking runs away. So I do think he would fit better being in a committee, but I can still see him being able to handle 15 carries a game, maybe even 20 if called upon. But I do prefer him more in that committee role.
Yeah, I think it's also worth adding as well. I think RJ Harvey's got kind of value add as a receiver. Now, the way I view receiving at running backs is, can you not catch? And then there's the bucket where most people fall, which is you kind of are competent, but not really bringing much value. And that, I mean, you can do check downs, you can do screens, you can do the kind of the basic elements of being a receiver out of the backfield. And then there's the small bucket at the end, which is the value add receiver. So, can you line up one-on-one and go against a linebacker or a safety? Can you potentially flex out in the slot? Are you adding, more complex routes out the backfield in terms of angles and wheels and things like that? And I think RJ Harvey's got that potential. I think he makes catches away from his frame. I think he's got that kind of route running understanding. So that's really intriguing for me because we all know, receptions are where the value is in fantasy. So I think he's got that as an impressive floor that most other guys do not have as such. Bhayshul Tuten, the explosive combine warrior. Let's just open the floor. What are your thoughts on Tuten?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to call him a sleeper, but I think, as you mentioned, after that combine performance, he seems to be the player on everyone's lips. You look at the 40 timer, 4.32, first amongst running backs, the 10-yard split, 1.49, first amongst running backs, the vert, first amongst running backs, the broad jump, second amongst running backs. That just shows how explosive he is. But the combine did also show us the area of the game where he could potentially struggle. The shuttle, he ran a 4.41, which was last amongst the 8 running backs that participate. And I think that is where the problem could lie. I do feel he's really scheme dependent. This is a guy that you've definitely got to get in that outside zone run kind of offense, get him into space, and he's got that straight line speed to get away. He doesn't excel with his agility. He's very much a straight line runner with speed. But we have seen recently in recent times that NFL backs with this kind of skill set can still be productive. A couple of names that come to mind, obviously, Raheem Mostert's kind of an obvious one, a guy that's got that straight line speed, not really somebody that excels in the receiving game, but you get him in the right offense over with the 49ers, over in Miami. It's just a perfect landing spot for somebody like Tuten with that similar skill set as well. Elijah Mitchell is another name that comes to mind, again, though, in that 49ers offense. Obviously, we want all these speedy running backs to land in those kind of offenses because we know how gold they can be for fantasy football. And there's only so many players you can get into those kind of offenses. But I do think in the right situation, Tuten can be an explosive player for fantasy football. Maybe a little bit boom or bust. I don't think he's going to be someone that's going to give you that safe floor because I don't really see him being the lead back, the guy that's going to control the backfield. I do feel like he's very scheme dependent, has to be used in a committee probably as a kind of a change of pace running back. So do think he's super interesting though with that elite speed. As I say, get him in the right scheme and he could be insane in terms of what he can do for fantasy at probably a cheap price that you have to pay in your rookie draft.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if we're talking range of outcomes, Tuten's got one of the widest range. His 100th percentile outcome is that Shanahan scheme, outside zone heavy, and he could be incredible.
Yeah.
But I've got some kind of real knocks and some concerns that I'm slightly worried about. But before we get to that, if you haven't picked up a copy of our rookie guide, you can hit the join button down below, become a member, silver tier and above, get a free rookie guide. It will be launched the week after the NFL draft with all the rookie content you need. I've got this. There's a couple of prospects this year where I watched the tape and I can't decide if it's that they've got zero agility or they've just got horrendous vision. And the reason is that Tuten far too often is just, he gets the ball and he's just straight line north-south, I'm plowing ahead. There's no like pressing a gap to kind of create something. There's no waiting for his gaps to develop. There's no, check in for the bend, the break, the cutback, all that kind of stuff. It is just, this is where I've got to go. I'm going to get there as fast as possible. And that could be how that's kind of scheme dependent and how he's been coached. It could be that he doesn't have the agility to change direction. So he's just getting from 0 to 100 in a straight line as fast as possible. Or it could be that he's got really, really bad vision. Now he's okay in open space. When he kind of gets past that second level, his vision's okay. He understands kind of how to break things off and angles to take and stuff like that. But in the tackle box, I've got a real concern. I don't know. As I said, it could be that it isn't him. It's scheme dependent, but it's definitely a niggle, shall we say. And then the receiving side, I think he wasn't used a huge amount. Like he was mainly just check downs, kind of manufactured screens, things like that. Again, his use in space maybe hints at some upside there, but I just don't know if I'm getting a value add receiver, and are we going to see him coming off the field on third downs because he's not, massive at 5'9", 206. He's not really a value add receiver. So is he just a kind of potentially undersized early down back, which concerns me because I feel like he could be without a role at the next level. If you're a fan of Tyron Tracy, looking for the next wide receiver convert to running back, Brashard Smith may be the guy for you. 5'10", 194 pounds, out of SMU. Is this the next kind of ex-wide receiver running back convert that we can be excited about after Antonio Gibson, Ty Montgomery, Tyron Tracy? Is Brashard Smith going to be in those heady heights?
For me personally, Rich, I love these kind of running backs. Super interesting prospects to evaluate. As you mentioned, converted from wide receiver, did very little in the 3 years that he did play wide receiver over at Miami. I think his highest season was just over 300 yards, and the other two were less than that. So didn't look like things were going his way. But then the transfer over to SMU, switching to running back, looked a completely different player. Why did he spend so long playing wide receiver when he comes in as a running back and is so productive running the ball? Really impressive as a run, over 1,300 rushing yards, 14 rushing touchdowns. And as you mentioned, he's got that receiving upside, being a former wide receiver. He can run the routes. He's somebody that's going to be really interesting. Also a great athlete, ran a 4.3940 at the combine, which ranked third amongst running backs. Even if things don't play out for him, he's going to have a role on an NFL team, because I think he is going to be a special team player at the very least. He's shown he can do that in the kick return throughout his college career. So at the very worst, an NFL team's going to look at him and the potential upside he has in the special teams game. But as you mentioned, you talk about comps for players like this and you come up with the usual names. Antonio Gibson. For me, one that I really like is Tony Pollard, which is, I know, a player that you're quite fond of, Rich. And I do kind of see it, maybe not quite as big as a Tony Pollard, but again, somebody that used to be a former wide receiver, has shown that he can be a great runner. And this is the thing with Brashard Smith that I really like. You talk about Antonio Gibson. This is a guy that the narrative for age was the fact that he barely had any touches in college running the ball, and then he came into the NFL and looked good in the NFL when running the ball. We've already seen it from Smith, so that's what really excites me. And again, I feel like we need to get him in a situation, in a scheme where he can really utilize that skill set that he has. The obvious one, the 49ers, obviously Deebo Samuel, not the same kind of player as Deebo Samuel in terms of size, but as somebody that can be used as a receiver and a running back. Is Shanahan now going to look for the new Deebo Samuel, with him obviously being traded away? And for me as well, the Chiefs is a really interesting spot. Look at Jarrett McKinnon. That's a guy that Andy Reid absolutely loved. And I feel like the Chiefs need a player like that. They've currently not got that in that backfield. Isaiah Pacheco, we know what a bruising runner he can be. He absolutely steamrolls through players. So having somebody like Smith that can be used as the receiving back, I feel like that's a piece that the Chiefs have really missed this past season. Patrick Mahomes, a guy that absolutely loves to throw the ball around the goal line as well. He's only going to elevate somebody like Brashard Smith, using him out of the backfield. So yeah, super interesting player for me. A lot is going to depend on that landing spot. Hopefully he lands in a situation where they can really utilize those skill sets that he has.
Yeah, I think maybe you're doing Smith a disservice there. Throwing out the kind of the gadget. They said, I think this guy can be a true workhorse running back. I think we don't need to kind of limit him to that sort of gadget type ability. I think, anytime a player is late to a position, you're concerned about the more nuanced elements of the game. What's his feel like? What's his vision like? Does he understand how to press a gap and make the cutback? Does he understand how to kind of try and manipulate defenders to create lanes and things like that? He does that in buckets. And I think that if this is a guy who's hardly been playing the running back position, and he does that naturally, that really hints at me a potential ceiling that I'm very excited for. But if you're finding us for the first time, hit that subscribe button. Every single rookie profile that you will need to know for your rookie drafts, we got you covered. You look at the stats now, obviously a little bit weird considering the first 3 years, as you said, was almost exclusive as a receiver at Miami, where didn't get huge amounts of usage. That flexibility, potential to flex out wide and things like that is obviously massively intriguing. My one concern, we talked about the impressive side of the vision and things like that. I do think he's too easy to come down. I don't think he runs with power. I don't think he potentially runs behind his pads at an elite level. Do you think that's something that he could potentially learn at the next level, or do you think that's a natural kind of instinct that he's lacking and therefore could be a concern moving forward?
Yeah, well, as we've said, he's fairly new to the position, so there's going to be a lot that he can improve on. I think the size that he's got at 5'10", just under 200 pounds, it's not like he's super light. He's obviously on the lighter side of the scale, but he's there's running backs in the NFL that have been able to handle a workload and be able to use that power with the size to run through tackles and work their way through the gap. So I do think it's definitely something that he can improve on. But as I say, being so new to the position, that's what excites me about players like this, Rich. The fact that they're very raw, but what he's shown us in 1 year in college football as a running back and in the running game, it's not like he's excelled in the receiving game despite changing to running back and he's been used as a receiver. He's looked really impressive running the ball as well. So there's a lot of positives with him and a lot of excitement. As I say, being such a raw running back and the ways that it can improve. So really looking forward to seeing the offense he lands on, hopefully with a good edge coach and a good running back coach that can really improve him and take him to that next level. Because as you say, the potential ceiling is exciting with somebody like Smith.
Big things come in small packages. We're hoping that's the case for Tez Johnson. 5'10", but 154 pounds. I'm joined by the fantastic Matt FF Dynasty of DLF. Matt, let's just address the elephant in the room. Is Tez Johnson too skinny to play in the NFL?
I mean, it could be, Rich. We've spoke about numerous wide receivers over the years. Guys like Devontae Smith, guys like Tank Dell. Are they too small for the NFL? And they've probably got 10, 15 pounds on a guy like Tez Johnson. He is unbelievably light. And there is some concerns with that. Can he last in the NFL, which is a completely different beast to college football. But we've got to give him his props. He looked very good in college football over the last few years. Was over at Troy, didn't really do too much, but the transfer over to Oregon had that incredible breakout season in 2023 alongside Bo Nix, being the wide receiver 1A and 1B alongside Troy Franklin. That was impressive to see that he was able to do it. And then you look as well this offseason, you look at the Senior Bowl. Super impressive at the Senior Bowl. People were coming out saying the guy was unguardable. You see some clips on Twitter and he's just making defensive back look stupid because he's so light. He's like a bag getting caught up in the wind, like a carrier bag that just drifts away. You just can't seem to catch him because he's just such great agility. And I think that again showed in the NFL Combine. The shuttle ran a 4.15, which was fourth amongst wide receivers, and the 3 count 6.65, which was first amongst wide receivers. But I was shocked actually at the disappointment of the 40 time. The fact that he ran a 4.51 at such a lightweight, that was pretty shocking to me. I thought that he would run a lot quicker than that given his weight. But I suppose that's kind of what shows up on his tape. The agility is absolutely electric. That's why he looked so good at the Senior Bowl, because his ability to break out of cuts and make the moves, it makes defenders look stupid, to be honest. So I think he's going to be super interesting. As I mentioned, we've named a few players that have been light and we've had concerns with that have excelled in the NFL. Someone like a Zay Flowers, Josh Downs, a guy that plays a lot of slot, but he's on the light side. But again, as I say, these are guys that have got 10, 15 pounds on Tez Johnson. So can he withstand it in the NFL? That's the question we need to find out. But to his credit, he has only missed 2 games in college through injury. So it's not like he's not been able to do it. But as I say, it's a different beast when you get into the NFL with these guys. So it's going to be super interesting to see where he goes, what point of the draft as well he gets selected in, because could he now slip to maybe a day 3 guy because of that size and the struggles in the 40 time? Who knows? But I am excited to see where he lands and what the situation looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get into my thoughts, though, if you want more rookie content, hit the join button down below, become a member of the Sanctuary, and you get a free rookie guide, silver tier and above. Every single fantasy relevant player, plus rookie models, rankings, and everything you need to crush your rookie draft. Look, I'm going to lay it out, right? I love watching Tez Johnson. He's so exciting. He's so much fun. As you said, like rare agility skills. I mean, you'd hope so at his size. I think he is quicker than fast. I think that, the foot speed, but yeah, probably not elite top end speed. But I just can't see a role for him in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Okay. You'd normally say a guy like this, slot heavy role, he's going to, come in, get a free release off the line. That type of thing would be the role that you'd paint him as. Okay. My issue is that his blocking is non-existent. He gets run over by corners constantly. Like he is a massive net negative there. If you're a slot and you can't block, A, that's going to limit how often you can get on the field. But B, it's an issue. And then he really doesn't have great feel for zone. Like there's too often on tape where you can tell the defense is in zone. There's a big wide open space for him to just settle down in, sit, wait for the ball to be delivered, and he keeps running. And then the ball gets delivered and there's a defender right there. And it's like, he just doesn't seem to have that kind of football IQ of when to sit, when to go, how to kind of beat the zone. And in the NFL, slot receivers, that's where you make your money, is versus zone. So it's like, so what we're saying is this is a guy that can't really play in the slot. Obviously isn't going to be able to play the X because he'd just get destroyed by corners. So he's a Z only kind of flanker receiver. And that's just sort of not really an every down role. Those are getting phased out. We're seeing a lot more of these kind of Z/slot guys that are getting used in two receiver sets. It's just like, I just struggle to see a world where he is a consistent fantasy producer. And I feel like, yeah, he might make some bones on special teams. He might have the odd blow up play on red zone where, you know, he takes a screen to the house or he catches a deep shot or something like that. But really fun, really exciting college player. I just can't get on board with him as an NFL prospect. Am I being too harsh here, Matt?
No, I think you're spot on, to be honest, Rich. You've laid it out perfectly. The fact that he is kind of limited to that slot role, but I just can't see it working out from him, to be honest. And I think you're spot on as well in the fact we'll probably see a few highlights where he pops up and you think, wow, incredible play, but that's just not going to be consistent throughout the season. And in fantasy football, you kind of need that consistency and what you really expect from your slot wide receiver. So yeah, it's going to be one of those frustrating plays, I feel. Somebody that a lot of people are going to like, thinks really exciting, but I just don't think it's going to materialize in terms of fantasy production.
Oronde Gadsden, the converted wide receiver, 2 tight ends, incredible athletic profile, really interesting prospects on tape, given the wide receiver background. I'm joined by the fantastic @MattFF Dynasty. You will know him on Twitter as the Fantasy Weatherman. Matt, do you think that Gadsden is just too much of a prospect for us to be considering him for fantasy? Or do you think that there's that receiving potential from the kind of the college production as where he played that sort of wide receiver hybrid role that he's worth taking a flyer on in the late rounds of rookie drafts?
Yeah, I think he's going to be super interesting for fantasy football. One of these guys that we kind of fall in love with the idea in terms of fantasy, but does it work out in the NFL and can he be productive in the NFL and in turn give us those fantasy points? But you just look at his college career, as you mentioned, had a productive year, then had that Lisfranc injury in 2023 that kind of derailed him. After what was a breakout season in 2022, just shy of 1,000 yards and 6 touchdowns. But the fact that he came back last season and was just equally as productive, just shy of 950 yards and 7 touchdowns, I think that just shows what a weapon he can be in the NFL. Really impressed at the Shrine Bowl as well this season during practice sessions. Actually earned a spot on the East Team All-Practice team. So that just shows how he stood himself amongst those group of tight ends at the Shrine Bowl. The fact that he able to excel shows just how good of receiving tight end he can be. But as I mentioned, it's the idea that we fall in love with, but is it the practicality? A guy that springs to my mind who was super athletic, a guy that we all thought was going to be incredible for fantasy, Mike Gesicki. That's the kind of idea I've got in my mind, and that took him a long time to get some fantasy relevance. And it was just a case of landing in a scheme where he's used correctly, being able to be that big-bodied slot receiver and be utilised in that area of the game, not just as a prototypical tight end. But one really interesting fit, Rich, that keeps coming to mind, and you'll probably know as I'm not being offensive, Rich, but as an older man, you maybe know this. His father a little bit more. He played in the NFL. He played for Miami. He's from Miami. His dad played for Miami. I think that would be a really interesting situation to land in. We've seen what Miami's just been able to do with Jonnu Smith, who, again, is another one of these tight ends that's incredibly athletic. He's probably a little bit better after the catch than somebody like Gadsden, but I do think that's a really good scheme for him to land in, to be able to learn behind Jonnu Smith. But again, that's another tight end that took a little bit of time. There was a lot of hope, a lot of promise with Jonnu Smith, and it took, again, landing in that right scheme to really utilise the skill set that he has. So I do think with someone like Gadsden, it is going to come down to being in the correct situation. When he lands in that situation and is used to really excel at the things that he's good at, I think that's where we're going to get hopefully some fantasy production out of him. And I do think, given his age as well, still only 21 years old, he's a young prospect. He's got plenty of years in front of him in the NFL. So as I say, We need him to land in the right situation, but if he does, I think he's going to be a super interesting guy to get super late in your drafts. Probably going to be a round 4, maybe even round 5 pick in a lot of leagues if you don't play tight end premium.
Yeah, I think there's even a chance you might go undrafted in a lot of rookie drafts. And I think he's the kind of player that, look, if you're expecting production in 2025, I'm not sure it's going to come, but I think he's the kind of guy that an NFL team may take and may say, look, this is a 2-year project. And if you've got a taxi spot that you can sit him on and kind of be patient, I'm intrigued because there is absolutely athletic ability there. I think his ability to box up smaller defenders and things like that is fantastic. But he has got some stuff that he needs to work on. And, I think that my biggest issue is that at the moment, he's a slot-only guy. He's not going to be able to be used as a wide tight end. He's an F only. And we're in that kind of Dalton Kincaid situation where, the Bills, when they drafted Dalton Kincaid, they were like, we're going to be a 12 personnel team, but we're going to call it 11.5 because Dalton Kincaid's good enough to be that he's a wide receiver, but he can also block. Well, the problem is that he wasn't good enough in the blocking game. So teams just treated him as a receiver and he wasn't good enough to, beat safeties and corners in kind of one-on-one in coverage. And that's my concern for Gadsden is that, yeah, he's got the frame of a tight end, but at the moment he's not good enough blocking one-on-one. So teams are just going to treat him as a receiver, and he's not a good enough receiver to be a power slot. So I think he's going to take some time. I think he needs to work on his kind of hand placement, his aggression in the run game. If he can do that in a year or 2, I'm excited on him. I think his hands, his contested catchability, that is all very exciting. So yeah, probably not an immediate producer, but someone I'm intrigued by. If I can get him for free off waivers after your rookie draft, something like that, stash him on the taxi squad. It's the kind of player that I'm very intrigued by. But if you are finding this for the first time and you haven't hit that subscribe button, you're missing out. Every single rookie you need to know for those rookie drafts, we are profiling right here. Hit that subscribe. You get them dropping in your feed as we drop them every day. Matt, any I guess hope that there's immediate production if he does find that immediate home, or do you think this is 2026 and beyond that we're even considering any production?
Yeah, I think it is going to probably be one of those slow burners. As you say, the fact that he's converted from wide receiver as well, there's going to be some questions in terms of the things you've laid out. The blocking needs to be worked on. So he is kind of limited to being that specialist slot, big-bodied wide receiver. But I do think we're going to have situations where he maybe comes on in the red zone packages, because he's got that big frame. He's got that super big wingspan as well. So he is going to be a threat in the red zone right out of the gate with his size. So I think he's somebody that we could see little flashes from maybe in year 1, maybe even year 2. We might not get that full workload, but if he can progress, if he can develop, and as I said, if he can land in a scheme where he's really utilized and able to take advantage of the skill set that he does has, I do think he's going to be a great pickup, as I say, late in your drafts or potentially even for free. So definitely somebody that I'll be looking to stash in a lot of leagues.